The day had been a marathon of legal challenges, each case a delicate puzzle that demanded Marcus Reynolds' complete attention. His chambers at the Oakdale County Courthouse bore witness to hours of meticulous preparation, stacks of legal briefs creating a paper landscape across his mahogany desk. Today's docket had been particularly challenging. A civil rights case involving employment discrimination had consumed most of his mental energy. Marcus had listened intently to testimonies that spoke of systemic barriers, of dreams deferred and opportunities denied. His ruling would impact lives far beyond the courtroom's wood-paneled walls. At 42, Marcus represented a generation of professionals who had fought tooth and nail for every opportunity. His journey hadn't been a straight path but a winding road marked by exceptional determination. Growing up in a working-class neighborhood on the south side of the city, he had watched his parents work multiple jobs to provide opportunities for their children. His mother, a school librarian, had been his first mentor, filling their small apartment with books that told stories of possibility and persistence. Education became Marcus' ticket to a different life. Scholarships had carried him through undergraduate studies at a state university, then to law school, where he graduated at the top of his class. Each academic achievement was more than a personal victory. It was a statement, a declaration that talent and potential knew no boundaries. His appointment to the judicial bench had been historic. At 38, he became the youngest African-American judge in the county's history. The local newspaper had run a feature story, complete with photographs that captured both his professional demeanor and the quiet pride in his eyes. But Marcus never saw his achievements as an endpoint. They were waypoints, opportunities to create meaningful change from within the system. The summer evening embraced the city in a warm, golden light. Shadows stretched long across Maple Street, creating a canvas of urban tranquility. Marcus had chosen this route home deliberately. It took him through neighborhoods that told stories of transformation, some blocks showing signs of economic revival, others still wrestling with decades of systemic challenges. His sedan, a modest BMW that spoke more to functionality than luxury, hummed quietly. Classical music played softly. Beethoven's Moonlight Sonata, a gentle counterpoint to the day's intense legal deliberations. Marcus appreciated how music could create space for reflection, for processing the complex human narratives he encountered daily. Ahead, the street curved gently, revealing a landscape of mixed architectural styles. Vintage bungalows stood alongside newer developments, each house a testament to the neighborhood's evolving character. Marcus loved these visual narratives of change, of resilience. His mind drifted to the civil rights case. The plaintiff, a talented professional who had been systematically passed over for promotions, represented countless untold stories. Marcus had spent hours reviewing documentation, understanding the nuanced ways discrimination could manifest, not through overt actions, but through subtle, almost invisible mechanisms. The case would require a ruling that was both legally precise and morally courageous. He knew his decision would be scrutinized, potentially appealed, but Marcus had never shied away from difficult choices. A soft vibration from his phone interrupted his thoughts. A text from his wife, Alina, a public health administrator who shared his commitment to community service. Dinner at 7. The message read. Marcus smiled, already looking forward to their evening conversation, to sharing the day's complexities. Little did he know that the next few moments would challenge everything he understood about professional interactions, about assumptions, about the very fabric of social relationships. A sudden flash of red and blue lights erupted behind him. The siren's wail cut through the evening silence like a knife, transforming an ordinary night into something extraordinary. Officer Tom Harrison had been on patrol for 6 hours, the weight of his duty pressing down on him like the summer heat. This stretch of Maple Street was typically quiet, a neighborhood caught between urban transformation and suburban calm. His patrol car's air conditioning hummed, a temporary respite from the day's mounting tensions. When he first spotted the BMW, something immediately caught his attention. The car was immaculate, not a speck of dust, perfectly aligned with the street's lane markers. Too perfect, Harrison thought. Years of police work had trained him to notice details, to read between the lines of what seemed ordinary. He ran the license plate through the system. Clean record, no outstanding warrants. But something felt off. Harrison's career had been a mixed journey. Born to a family of law enforcement officers, he'd grown up believing in a straightforward world of right and wrong. His father and grandfather had been beat cops, their stories filling family dinners with tales of community service and heroism. But the reality of modern policing was far more complex than the narratives he'd grown up hearing. The last few years had been particularly challenging. Increasing public scrutiny, social media, community tensions. Every traffic stop felt like walking a tightrope. Harrison prided himself on being a professional, on seeing beyond surface-level assumptions. Yet, as he approached the BMW, a familiar tension crept into his muscles. Years of training and experience battled with unconscious biases he was only beginning to recognize. Marcus watched the officer's approach in his rearview mirror. The body language spoke volumes. Tension in the shoulders, hand hovering near the belt, a stance that suggested preparation for potential conflict. He had seen this posture countless times before. The patrol car's lights continued to pulse, casting alternating red and blue shadows inside Marcus's vehicle. The classical music from his stereo seemed absurdly peaceful against the charged atmosphere. Harrison's knock on the window was firm, almost percussive. Marcus pressed the button, lowering the window with deliberate, smooth movements. Years of professional training had taught him the importance of controlled, predictable actions. "Good evening, officer," Marcus said, his voice a model of calm professionalism. He kept his hands visible on the steering wheel, a practice he had learned long ago. Harrison's initial script seemed prepared. "Do you know why I pulled you over?" The question hung in the air, laden with unspoken implications. Marcus recognized it immediately, not a genuine inquiry, but a probing statement designed to create immediate psychological tension. "I'm afraid I don't," Marcus responded, his tone neutral. "Was I not maintaining the correct speed?" Up close, the differences between them were striking. Marcus in his tailored suit, still wearing the subtle elegance of a day spent in court. Harrison in his crisp police uniform, the badge gleaming under the streetlights. Harrison's eyes scanned the interior of the car. The leather briefcase, the neatly pressed suit jacket draped over the passenger seat, the classical music still playing softly. Each detail seemed to challenge his initial assumptions. "This is an interesting neighborhood for you to be driving through," Harrison said, the statement more of a loaded observation than a question. Marcus understood the subtext immediately. The neighborhood, historically working class, now in a state of economic transition, carried its own complex narrative of race, class, and urban change. A moment of silence stretched between them. Not hostile, but charged with unspoken narratives. Two professionals, each carrying their own stories, their own experiences, their own understanding of justice and community. Neither knew it yet, but this traffic stop would become a pivotal moment. An intersection where individual stories would collide, challenge, and ultimately transform. The questions came rapid fire, each one a subtle probe designed to unsettle and test. Harrison's notepad appeared almost magically, the pages crisp and white against the evening's soft light. "Where are you coming from?" The first question landed like a soft but deliberate punch. Marcus understood the game instantly. This wasn't about a traffic violation. This was an interrogation disguised as a routine stop. He calculated his response carefully, knowing that every word, every inflection could shift the dynamic. "I'm returning home from the courthouse," he responded, his voice calm and measured, professional without being confrontational. Harrison's eyebrow raised slightly. "And what exactly do you do at the courthouse?" The question hung in the air, pregnant with unspoken implications. Marcus recognized the layered nature of the inquiry. It wasn't just about his profession. It was a challenge to his very presence, his right to occupy this space. Years of legal experience had trained Marcus in the art of precise communication. He knew that emotion could escalate a situation. That calm could be a powerful form of resistance. Harrison's patrol car remained running, its lights continuing their rhythmic dance of red and blue. The sound of the engine created a low, persistent hum, a backdrop to their intricate verbal sparring. The officer's notebook seemed to capture every nuance. Marcus could see the quick movements of the pen, the way Harrison's hand gripped it. Tight, almost aggressive. Each stroke felt like another question, another probing investigation. "I'm a judge," Marcus finally offered, his tone neutral. "I was returning from presiding over cases at the Oakdale County Courthouse." Something shifted in Harrison's demeanor. An almost imperceptible change, surprise mixed with something more complex. Uncertainty. Marcus understood the dynamics at play. This wasn't just a traffic stop. This was a moment of cultural negotiation, a test of assumptions, of preconceived narratives about belonging and professional identity. His mind drifted momentarily to the civil rights case he had just concluded. The parallels were not lost on him. Systemic barriers, unconscious biases, the constant need to prove one's worth and position. Harrison continued his line of questioning. "What brings you to this neighborhood?" The question was loaded, carrying the weight of historical tensions. Marcus knew the neighborhood. He understood its complex history. Areas like these told stories of urban transformation, of communities caught between past challenges and future possibilities. "I live nearby," Marcus responded, his voice steady. "I choose this road home because it reminds me of the progress we've made and the progress still ahead." Each word was carefully chosen, not confrontational, but reflective. An invitation to understanding rather than conflict. Harrison seemed momentarily thrown. The script he had prepared, the assumptions he had carried, were being gently but firmly dismantled. The summered evening continued around them. Streetlights flickered, casting long shadows. Nearby, a dog barked in the distance. The world continued, oblivious to this moment of intense human interaction. Marcus remained composed, his hands still visible on the steering wheel. Years of professional training had taught him the power of patience, of allowing space for understanding to emerge. Harrison's pen hovered over the notebook. The usual categories, the comfortable narratives, suddenly felt inadequate. This was not the interaction he had anticipated. A car passed slowly on the street, its occupants casting curious glances at the scene. The patrol car's lights continued their mesmerizing dance of red and blue, a silent witness to this moment of potential transformation. In these moments, everything could change. A single conversation could challenge years of ingrained assumptions. Marcus knew this. He had seen it in courtrooms, in community meetings, in the delicate work of social progress. The tension was palpable, but not hostile. It was the tension of two professionals, two human beings, negotiating a complex landscape of perception and understanding. The moment stretched between them like a taut wire, vibrating with unspoken tensions. Marcus knew this dance well, the subtle art of maintaining dignity in a moment designed to strip it away. His fingers moved slowly, deliberately towards his wallet, each movement calculated to avoid any misinterpretation. Officer Harrison's hand instinctively shifted, a barely perceptible movement towards his holster. Years of training had ingrained reflexes that spoke to deeper, more complicated narratives about fear, perception, and survival. Marcus's wallet emerged, a simple leather bifold that had been a gift from Elena on his first judicial appointment. Inside, carefully preserved, was his judicial identification. He understood the power of documentation, of official validation. "I'd like to provide my identification," Marcus said, his voice calm and clear. The words hung in the air, a bridge between two different realities. The official badge caught the streetlight, its embossed seal gleaming with an official sheen. The Oakdale County Judicial Seal, a symbol of authority that carried weight far beyond its physical form. Harrison's eyes focused on the identification. The transformation was immediate and profound. Everything changed in that moment, not dramatically, not with a thunderclap of revelation, but with the subtle shift of a perspective suddenly turned on its axis. The notepad in Harrison's hand seemed to lose its purpose. The interrogative tone dissolved, replaced by something more complex, a mixture of surprise, embarrassment, and a dawning awareness. Marcus watched the progression of emotions cross the officer's face. Confusion first, then recognition, then a deep internal reckoning that went far beyond this single traffic stop. Judge Reynolds, Harrison stammered, the professional title replacing the earlier loaded questions. His posture changed, shoulders dropping, the defensive stance melting away. The streetlight seemed to capture the moment perfectly, half in shadow, half in light, a metaphor for the complex conversation about to unfold. Marcus understood the power of this moment. It wasn't about triumph, it was about opportunity, and chance to transform a potentially harmful encounter into something meaningful. "Is there a specific reason for the stop?" Marcus asked, his voice maintaining the same calm professionalism he used in his courtroom. Harrison's mind raced. The carefully constructed narrative he had brought to this moment was crumbling. The assumptions, the unspoken suspicions, they all fell away like a thin veneer revealing something more complex underneath. "I noticed you were driving carefully," Harrison began, the explanation sounding weak even as the words left his mouth. "Your lane positioning seemed unusually precise." A hint of a smile crossed Marcus's face. Not mocking, not aggressive, but a genuine acknowledgement of the moment's absurdity. The patrol car's lights continued their rhythmic pulse, red and blue painting the street in alternating waves of color. A metaphor for the complex layers of this interaction. Never simply one thing or another, but a constant negotiation of perception. Harrison's training had never prepared him for moments like these. The carefully constructed protocols, the standard responses, they all seemed inadequate in the face of this unexpected encounter. Marcus saw beyond the immediate moment. He recognized this as more than a traffic stop. It was a microcosm of larger societal conversations about perception, about assumptions, about the invisible barriers that continue to divide communities. "Would you like to see my full identification?" Marcus offered, his tone suggesting collaboration rather than confrontation. The question hung in the air, an invitation to a different kind of interaction, not a challenge, but an opportunity for understanding. Harrison's previous confidence had evaporated. In its place was something more human, vulnerability, the first step towards genuine connection. The summered evening continued around them. A gentle breeze moved through nearby trees. The world kept turning, indifferent to this moment of profound human interaction. In courtrooms and on street corners, in moments of tension and potential conflict, understanding begins with the simplest of human capabilities, the ability to truly see one another. The police department's conference room felt charged with an unusual energy. Fluorescent lights cast a clinical glow over polished wood tables, creating a stark backdrop for a conversation that would challenge everything. Marcus sat across from Chief Sandra Rodriguez, his judicial credentials now serving a purpose far beyond any single traffic stop. The incident had become something more, a catalyst for meaningful dialogue. Chief Rodriguez was a veteran of the force, having risen through the ranks during a time of significant departmental transformation. Her office walls displayed a complex narrative, community service awards alongside photographs that told stories of progress and challenge. "I'm not here to file a complaint," Marcus began, his voice calm and measured. "I'm here to create an opportunity for understanding." The words hung in the air, unexpected and powerful. Harrison, who sat nearby, looked both uncomfortable and intrigued. His earlier bravado had completely dissolved, replaced by a raw vulnerability that comes from true self-reflection. Rodriguez leaned forward, her posture suggesting genuine interest. "Go on," she prompted. Marcus understood the delicate nature of this conversation. It wasn't about blame. It was about growth, about recognizing the invisible barriers that continue to divide communities. He shared stories from his years on the bench, not as accusations, but as observations, cases that revealed systemic challenges. moments that highlighted the complex intersections of race, perception, and professional identity. Every traffic stop is more than a moment of law enforcement, Marcus explained. It's an opportunity for human connection, for understanding. Harrison shifted in his seat. The weight of the moment pressed down on him, a combination of professional embarrassment and a dawning awareness of something larger than himself. Chief Rodriguez took notes, her pen moving deliberately across the page. Each stroke captured more than words. It documented a potential path forward. The conversation explored the nuanced ways unconscious bias manifests, not as overt discrimination, but as a complex web of assumptions and learned behaviors. Marcus approached the topic with the same precision he brought to his judicial work: factual, compassionate, forward-looking. Training isn't just about protocols, he suggested. It's about developing empathy, about understanding the lived experiences of the community. Harrison's presence told a story of its own. A young officer confronting the most challenging aspect of professional growth, recognizing one's own limitations, the vulnerability required for true change. Outside the conference room, the city continued its daily rhythm. Traffic moved. People worked. But inside this room, something significant was happening. Chief Rodriguez outlined potential departmental changes: enhanced cultural awareness training, community engagement programs, mechanisms for honest dialogue and continuous learning. Marcus recognized this as the true work of progress, not grand gestures, but consistent, intentional steps toward understanding. "I'd like to propose a collaborative approach," Marcus said, "working together to develop training programs that go beyond standard protocols." The idea was revolutionary in its simplicity, using the legal system and law enforcement as partners, not adversaries. A bridge-building exercise that acknowledged the humanity on both sides. Harrison found his voice. "I want to learn," he said, the words coming out raw and honest. "I didn't understand how my actions could impact someone's experience." The moment was profound, not a confrontation, but a genuine moment of human connection. Chief Rodriguez saw an opportunity. "Would you be willing to work with our training division?" she asked Marcus. The question was more than a professional invitation. It was an acknowledgement of a shared responsibility. Marcus smiled. The kind of smile that suggested hope was not just a concept, but a practical tool for societal transformation. "Absolutely," he responded. The fluorescent lights continued to hum. The conference room, with its institutional feel, had become something else entirely. A space of potential, a place where understanding could take root and grow. Outside, the city continued. But inside this room, the first steps of meaningful change were being taken. Not through grand declarations, but through honest conversation. Through the willingness to see beyond initial perceptions, to recognize our shared humanity. The police training center stood as a testament to possibility. A modern building with large windows that seemed to invite transparency. Inside, a new type of professional development was taking shape, challenging long-held assumptions and creating space for genuine understanding. Tom Harrison stood at the front of the training room, a position that would have seemed impossible just months earlier. His presentation was more than a series of slides. It was a personal journey of transformation laid bare for his fellow officers to witness. "I thought I was doing my job," he began, his voice steady but vulnerable. "But I've learned that doing your job means seeing the humanity in every interaction." The room was filled with officers from across the department. Some listened with curiosity, others with skepticism. Change is never comfortable, and this training challenged everything they thought they knew about law enforcement. Marcus had been instrumental in designing the program, not as an outsider, but as a collaborative partner. Each module carefully crafted to bridge understanding, to create empathy without judgment. The training explored complex topics: understanding systemic barriers, recognizing unconscious bias, the impact of historical context on current interactions. It wasn't about making officers feel guilty, but about expanding their perspective. Alina, Marcus's wife, had brought her public health expertise into the program's development. Prevention is about understanding, she often said. Her insights helped create a holistic approach to community engagement. Harrison shared his personal story, the traffic stop, the moment of revelation, the uncomfortable journey of self-reflection that followed. It was a narrative of vulnerability, of professional growth. I realized my assumptions were creating barriers, he explained. Every traffic stop is more than a procedure. It's a human interaction. The department had implemented a mentorship program. Experienced officers paired with newer recruits, focusing on communication skills, cultural awareness, and emotional intelligence. Marcus occasionally visited, not as a lecturer, but as a facilitator. His judicial experience allowed him to frame conversations that were both challenging and constructive. One exercise involved role-playing scenarios. Officers would navigate complex interactions with feedback focused on communication, empathy, and understanding. Chief Rodriguez had championed the program, seeing it as essential to modern policing. We protect and serve, she would say, and that means understanding the community we serve. Harrison's transformation became a case study, from a defensive officer making assumptions to an advocate for meaningful change. His journey wasn't about perfection, but about continuous learning. The training center became a laboratory of human understanding. Each session peeled back layers of ingrained thinking, creating space for new perspectives. Local community leaders were invited to share their experiences, not as critics, but as partners in creating safer, more understanding communities. Marcus saw this as true justice work, not confined to courtrooms, but extending into everyday interactions. Each conversation a chance to build bridges, to create understanding. Technology played a role too. Body camera review sessions became opportunities for reflection, not to punish, but to understand, to see interactions from multiple perspectives. The program wasn't about creating a perfect system. It was about creating a system committed to continuous improvement, to listening, to understanding. Harrison's fellow officers began to see the value. Reduced complaints, more effective community interactions, a sense of mutual respect that went beyond professional obligations. Alina often discussed the parallels with public health. Prevention is about understanding, she would remind Marcus. It's about creating environments where everyone can thrive. The training center became a symbol of possibility, a place where professional growth meant personal growth, where vulnerability was seen as strength, not weakness. As winter turned to spring, the impact became visible. Small changes, more thoughtful interactions, a growing understanding that true safety comes from connection, not separation. Marcus would reflect on that traffic stop. What could have been a moment of conflict had become a catalyst for meaningful change. A reminder that every interaction holds the potential for transformation. The city continued to evolve, and in this training center, one conversation at a time, understanding was taking root. The Reynolds family home sat nestled in a neighborhood that told its own story of urban transformation. A craftsman-style house with carefully tended gardens, it was more than just a dwelling. It was a sanctuary of memories, conversations, and hope. Marcus sat in his study, surrounded by books that traced the long arc of social progress. Photographs lined the walls, family moments, professional milestones, moments of collective achievement. Each image a chapter in a larger narrative of resilience and possibility. His children, Jordan and Amara, had grown up with conversations that went beyond typical dinner table discussions. Social justice wasn't an abstract concept in their home. It was a lived experience, a family mission. "Dad," Jordan asked one evening, spreading out college research materials, "how do you stay hopeful after everything you've seen?" The question hung in the air, weighted with generational expectation and genuine curiosity. Marcus understood the complexity behind the simple inquiry. His career had been a constant navigation between systemic challenges and individual potential. Each court case, each interaction, was a testament to both the progress made and the progress still needed. "Hope isn't passive," he explained, his voice gentle but firm. "It's an active choice. a commitment to creating change, one interaction at a time. Alina, sitting nearby, added her perspective. As a public health administrator, she understood the power of systemic approach to social challenges. Her work in community health centers had shown her the same truths Marcus encountered in courtrooms. The traffic stop had become more than an isolated incident. It was a teaching moment, a reminder of the ongoing work of understanding. Marcus thought about his own journey. Growing up, his parents had prepared him for a world that would constantly test his belonging. Every achievement came with an additional burden, proving not just his competence, but his humanity. His father, a postal worker who had navigated decades of institutional racism, had taught him resilience. Your dignity, he would say, is not something they can take. It's something you carry. Those lessons echoed through Marcus's professional life. In courtrooms, in community meetings, in that unexpected traffic stop, dignity remained his most powerful tool. Amara, preparing for law school, represented a generation of hope. She saw the world not just as it was, but as it could be. Her conversations with her parents revealed a nuanced understanding of progress, recognizing challenges while remaining committed to change. The work is never finished, Marcus often told his children, but that doesn't mean it isn't worth doing. The training program with the police department had become more than a professional initiative. It was a personal commitment to creating understanding. Each session, each conversation was an investment in a more just future. Officer Harrison's transformation continued to inspire Marcus. It wasn't about individual redemption, but about demonstrating the possibility of genuine growth. Late at night, Marcus would reflect on the complexity of social progress. It wasn't a linear path, but a series of interconnected moments, conversations, interactions, small acts of understanding. The books in his study, works by James Baldwin, Derek Bell, Michelle Alexander, spoke to this ongoing journey. Generations of thinkers who had mapped the intricate landscape of social change. Alina would often join these reflective moments. Her work in public health had shown similar patterns of systemic transformation. Small interventions creating ripple effects across communities. Change happens in conversation, she would say, in moments of genuine listening. The Reynolds home was more than a residence. It was a hub of continuous learning, of challenging assumptions, of maintaining hope in the face of systemic challenges. Jordan's college research, Amara's law school preparations, Marcus's judicial work, Alina's community health initiatives. Each path interconnected, each contributing to a broader narrative of progress. The traffic stop had become a metaphor, not of conflict, but of possibility. A reminder that every interaction holds the potential for understanding. As night settled over the neighborhood, Marcus looked out the window. The streetlights illuminated a landscape of potential, of stories waiting to be understood, of bridges waiting to be built. Hope, he knew, was not a destination. It was a continuous journey of active engagement, of seeing the humanity in every interaction. 1 year later, the landscape had changed. The traffic stop was no longer just an incident, but a catalyst for meaningful dialogue. Officer Harrison had become an advocate for community understanding, speaking at training sessions and sharing his personal journey. Marcus continued his work, not as a symbol of past challenges, but as a beacon of hope for future possibilities. What began as a potentially difficult encounter had transformed into a powerful story of human connection and mutual understanding.